Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, September 28th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Rutgers game is in 3 days, the game against Michigan in 59 days. We just got a chance to talk to Ohio State head coach Ryan Day and cornerbacks coach Tim Walton, and they were previewing the Rutgers game, and as usual, there was a lot to take away from those interviews. Kevin Noon of BuckeyeHuddle.com was there with me at the Woody on Tuesday. He is here to break down some of the more interesting things that we learned. Kevin, thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
So there has not been a lot that has gone wrong for Ohio State so far this year, but the cornerback position is a little bit of a concern, and so we got to talk to Tim Walton about that. We got to talk to Ryan Day a bunch about that. That was kind of the big story on Tuesday, was just who's out, how long are they going to be out, how about the guys who are replacing them, and who's behind the guys who are replacing them right now, who would replace those guys if those guys went out. So that's what we're going to be talking about on today's show. Let's start with a question that I'm sure is everyone's, the first question in everyone's mind, which is, how long are these guys going to be out? We got Jordan Hancock, we got Jyaire Brown, you got Denzel Burke, and it feels like the answer is maybe a little different for some of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to start with the ones that might be on the quicker path back, Jyaire Brown and Denzel Burke, could be back, as soon as this next week, but, it's Tuesday, and we have to see how they respond to, whatever their ailments are and so on and so forth. And we'll kind of go from there. Whereas Jordan Hancock sounds like it might be a couple more weeks there. We did learn after the game that with Denzel Burke, it was kind of a game time decision type of situation. The plan was hopefully to have him back. And, for whatever reason, just during that day, it just didn't seem to all click in. And, we don't really have a lot of details on necessarily what, has slowed Jyaire Brown, but the hope is to get them back. And, as we kind of joked about before we turned the recording machine on, Rutgers doesn't necessarily pose the greatest passing challenge in the world. So, you got some good reps out of your young guys. So, there's no need to rush guys back. But then again, you only get so many games a year. So, everybody's trying to get back.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's true of Jackson Smith and Jigba as well. And there was no real update on him, just to give you the non-answer that I'm sure you were also looking for in that injury conversation. But without those guys, without Denzel Burke, without Jyaire Brown, if they have another week without those guys, it's going to be J.K. Johnson, it's going to be Jyaire Brown again, you'd presume. And those guys were both very solid against Wisconsin. And for a true freshman like Jyaire Brown, this is the second time they've had in the span of 12 months that they've had a true freshman corner starting in the month of September, which is, that just doesn't really happen. Now it's happened twice in a year. And, Ryan Day and Tim Walton were asked about Jyaire Brown, and, they only have one scholarship cornerback who is healthy, who has been here on campus for more than 9 months or so. So, some true freshman was going to have to start, or they were going to have to move someone from a different position. So it's a little bit of by default, but how did Jyaire Brown show them that he really was ready to take that role on?
Yeah, we talk so much about what happens on Saturdays, but it's what happens on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays and Sundays and everything else at that point. And he'd been working really hard. Let's not forget, Jyaire Brown isn't some no-name 2-star out of Nowheresville. He was a highly regarded guy, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time to figure things out, especially when you're running a newish type of defensive scheme in terms of bringing Jim Knowles in and everything there. And in some ways, I guess it's best not, you don't know what you don't know. And Jyaire Brown doesn't know what he doesn't know. So you get out there and you react. And, not everything was perfect, but we could say that for anybody, to be quite honest, when it comes to how things go in the season. But, I think that you just show that willingness to work. You put in that time, you put in that extra time, and you're going to catch your coach's attention if you're doing everything right. And it just sounds like that Jyaire was doing everything right. And, when it was time to call his number, then his number got called. If he wasn't doing anything right and wasn't game ready, then they would have had to have figured something out.
Yeah, and Tim Walton talked about Jyaire Brown a little bit later, and talked about how the young corners, they got a lot of reps that offseason, and you're obviously going against Ohio State wide receivers in practice, so that's going to prepare you pretty darn well. And he said his job is really just to kind of keep them calm and keep them just kind of focused on doing things one thing at a time, and having that short memory that we talk about corners having to have. Another true freshman who has been proving himself in practice and showed up very early on the field on Saturday was Sonny Styles. I will raise my hand and say I did not expect to see Sonny Styles in the first quarter of any game until at least late October, early November, and there was September, and there was Sonny Styles in the first quarter against Wisconsin. So how did Sonny Styles, who should by all rights be playing high school football right now, how on earth did he get on the field that early against Wisconsin?
Yeah, funny story was that Tony Gerderman and I were sitting up in the press box, and somebody's like, I think that's Sonny Styles. We're like, oh, no. And remember, they were wearing their black jerseys, and those numbers don't really pop, especially when you're 6 miles away in the press box. And we're like, oh, you mean Cody Simon, 30, not 20. It's like, no, it's 20. And you look, and it's like, I'll be damned. And let's not forget that Sonny Styles has, he already had a college-ready body. I mean, he is a genetic freak. He's the son of Lorenzo Styles, the former Buckeye. And, and some of that is just a matter of genetics, and some of that is that he's had a guy that played a lot of football in his life as a dad who's gotten him ready. I mean, and the thing is like, okay, well, Tom, you coach your kids in youth sports, and that's going to get them so far. But if you sat there and you played the sports at the highest of levels, I mean, the lessons may be a little bit different at that point. But again, credit to Sonny Styles for coming in and working, and he probably knew that he was going to have to outwork everybody as being below a freshman in terms of chronological age. I mean, needing to be, should be a high school senior at this point. So, I mean, I think it's just kind of a combination of everything, and throw in a little bit of need, and you put him out there, and, the rest is kind of history.
Yeah, he has a very unique combination of the football pedigree, but also the coach's kid thing. Like, normally when you think the coach's kid, you think, like Stetson Bennett is the type of, like, the coach's kid, like the scrappy underdog, has to do it with brains, and because he doesn't have the speed or the strength or whatever. I mean, Sonny Styles has the speed, he has the strength, but he also has the coach's kid thing. And Tim Walton talked about how, working with his dad and being with his dad and going through the high school program that he went through and all that kind of stuff, he's used to being in tough situations. And, his dad helped prepare him. He talked about Perry Eliano, the safeties coach, how he's helped prepare Sonny Styles for this year. And, he said, you have to be ready when your number's called. And he is very seasoned for a young guy. And he's someone who's able to take it from the classroom to the field. That's something that is one of those things that you probably, if you're not used to being around football coaches, that doesn't necessarily mean a lot to you. That's something that is usually indicative. Like, that is one of the tells of that football coaches will use when they talk about a guy who can really take it from the classroom to the field. That is that is high praise from a football coach. And Tim Walton dropped that one on Sonny Styles on Tuesday. Another spot where they feel pretty good. I think right now at the corner position, you're missing 3 of your 6 healthy scholarship cornerbacks. You're playing 1 true freshman. You're playing 1 redshirt freshman. The only other healthy scholarship cornerback on the roster is freshman Ryan Turner. He's played just kind of sparingly. So, I don't know that they necessarily he would be the next guy up if they needed another corner on Saturday against Rutgers. It sounds like they've got a couple guys in the safety room who would maybe be more likely to kind of be the next man up in that situation. Who are those guys? Yeah,
Cam Martinez and Tanner McAllister. I mean, obviously Tanner McAllister knows the system well, coming over with Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State. And then Cam Martinez, I mean, he's kind of been a Swiss Army knife. Let's not forget he was a Mr. Football in the state of Michigan as an offensive player, and has really been kind of cross-trained with a lot of things on the defensive side of the ball. So those would probably be your next guys up. Ryan Turner, it takes time. It's really a big thing when you can see a true freshman be able to step in and do some of these things, and everybody kind of operates at their own timetable. But with Cam and with Tanner, they do have a lot of talent in the safety room, and if they did have to make some adjustments, it would be there now. What would that mean for the safety rotation? I mean, I think we'd need to see a lot there in terms of that, but at least they do have that type of plan, because, I mean, at least it's not happening mid-game and you haven't thought about it. So, there's a difference between, Ryan Day was kind of talking about, not to change the offensive side of the ball, but when Jackson Smith-Njigba's lost during the Notre Dame game, okay, what do I do now? And he kind of commented on why coaches are always pacing so much before games and everything else, and that's because they're trying to play all these what-ifs in their mind. And another reason why we can sit there and see a picture of a coach in year 1 versus year 5, and it looks like they put 20 years on their life. So, just to try and bring this back full circle, yeah, Martinez and McAllister seem to be the guys that are in the proverbial Alert 5 jet, ready to go in case something happens.
Yeah, I think the only job on earth that ages you as quickly as a United States presidency is the Ohio State head football coach. It certainly seems that way anyway. You look at a picture of Jim Tressel the day he took the job, or a picture of Urban Meyer the day he took the job, and boy, it is it will age you pretty quickly. Ryan Day has so far been sort of immune to that, at least so far. He's a little younger than those other guys were, so maybe that helps as well. But one thing that is probably keeping Ryan Day from prematurely aging is he's feeling pretty good about the defense right now. And he talked about how the defensive line is kind of what he thinks is the key to the whole thing, and he seems like he's pretty happy with where that defensive line is right now.
Yeah, but if you talk to fans who look at the sack numbers and look at some of those havoc numbers, and they're not necessarily there, but you're also looking at a defense that's getting a lot of things done. And I think people are going to sit there and they're going to say, well, you gave up 21 to Toledo. What's up with that? And let's remember, a lot of that came in garbage time, and one of those could be kind of attributed to a freshman safety taking a horrible angle that he should have been able to drop Braylon Allen for a short gain versus a 75-yard touchdown. But they have a lot of depth there. I mean, getting Mike Hall back was huge. I mean, we'd heard some mixed stories going into the Wisconsin game about what his availability would be, and then lo and behold, in that first series, he's out there. There's a lot more positivity coming out about the defensive line when you talk to the coaches than maybe just the armchair quarterbacks, and that's generally par for the course.
And where do football coaches want to win the game? Where is a football game won? It's won in the trenches. They're happy with the defensive line. A good note from Jerry Emig, the SID, in the notes this week. Ohio State has allowed a total of 12 tackles for loss and sacks combined, 10 tackles for loss, 2 sacks in their first 4 games. Only Georgia in the nation, only Georgia has been better. So that is pretty good company to be in. And if you're winning the game on the offensive line and you're winning the game on the defensive line, you're probably winning the game. That's typically how it goes, and that is how it has gone for Ohio State for the first 4 weeks. Saturday against Rutgers will be week number 5, game number 5, the final of a 5-game homestand to start the season. Only the 3rd time that Ohio State has had a 5-game homestand to open a football season. So we will be there to cover all of that. It's a 3:30 kickoff. We will be at the shoe. Based on history, we'll be at the shoe well before noon and start to get ready for our pregame show. You can find that at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. And then after the game is over, we'll have our full postgame coverage as well, with player interviews, coach interviews. Probably, if the timing works out, we'll have a little Greg Schiano press conference for you. We'll have insight, analysis, our X's and O's guys, our recruiting guys, Tony, Kevin, and me all at the stadium. It should be a lot of fun. Make sure you join us there at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. And also make sure you join us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. It has been another great week there. Lots of really interesting recruiting stuff. We talked to Mark Givler a little bit on yesterday's show. Gave you sort of some of that, but there's been a lot more there. Alex Gleitman continues to kill it on the recruiting front as well. We have our X's and O's guys, Ross Fulton, Justin Whitlatch, and Devin Radcliffe. They are all doing a great job. Those guys are always a very popular feature, either on this show or on those pre- and post-game shows. And you can talk to them on our board and get your questions answered. We got a whole thread just for X's and O's questions. So make yourself a little bit of a smarter football fan. Talk to our X's and O's guys. Make yourself a little bit of a smarter Ohio State fan. Talk to our recruiting guys. Kind of get the inside scoop on where things stand with guys. Be the smartest person at your tailgate. Sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.